So recently I discovered the most efficient way of making notes by accident, and it's super good when you are strapped for time. So I'm going to share that with you, and hopefully you can apply those principles to your own note making so that you can save so much time and actually use that time on the things that you love. In the first place, do making notes actually work, or is it just a myth? Are they actually a waste of time? So no, they're not a myth, they actually work. I've experienced them myself in JC. So chemistry is quite a hard subject in JC because there's a lot of content that I didn't understand and I just swept them under the rug. And as you expect, my grades went down, and I needed tuition. So when I joined the tuition, they forced us to make notes for every topic. And that took a lot of time, but it worked because it made me so familiar with the content, it fixed my foundation, and the next exam onwards I got A. So making notes definitely works, but it takes so much time, so you can only afford to do it if it's the holidays or if you are far away from the exams. Okay, here's how I accidentally discovered the most efficient way of making notes. Last month, I had the end of semester exams, and for one of the exams was for this math related module, which I was procrastinating on the whole semester. So I didn't understand what was going on. I'm not naturally good at math either, but I didn't fix my content until 2 days before the exam. And so I knew that, okay, I have to study now, I have to make notes, understand everything, and do some practice questions. If not, I won't be ready for the exam. So that was when I made the most efficient notes I ever made, right, because of the time constraints, and I put them into here. And it actually turned out great. So during the exam itself, the questions were quite easy to handle. So the mindset shift that you need to have if you want to make such efficient notes is to think of these as the instruction manual for the topic. So specifically, it's to help you understand how to do the questions better. It's you teaching you, explaining to you. And throughout making the notes, constantly think of this question: how is this making me more ready for the exam? So this guiding question will help you do 3 things. Number 1, it will help you write only the important stuff you need. Number 2, help you not waste time making it too fancy. And number 3, it will help you in misconceptions or mistakes you made when practicing questions. Do you find yourself writing so much when you're making notes and wasting a lot of time? The textbook and school notes are very thick and they usually have a lot of extra information, but what's actually going to be tested is way less. So here's how to write only the important stuff that will be tested. Step 1, look at the learning outcomes for that topic. Then you're going to make those your section headers in your notes. You don't even need to lift the entire learning outcome because sometimes it's quite lengthy, it's like a long sentence. You can summarize it into a short title. And step 2, you're going to write to yourself as if you're teaching a version of yourself that doesn't understand these concepts. The language you use should be whatever that suits you, and it should be simpler than what the textbook or school notes is using. Of course, it's also good to include the proper keywords, but the main goal is to explain to yourself as if you're going to hand this over later to yourself like an instruction manual for the topic. This is the biggest mistake students make when they're making notes. They spend way too much time making it look nice and fancy instead of doing the actual important stuff that will help them get the good grades. You see, making notes is just a tool. Just like a hammer is a tool for you when you want to build a house. If you spend all your time and energy decorating the hammer and making it look really nice, but so little time actually building the house, then you won't get much done. So if you find yourself making notes and taking many hours doing them, but your grades are still not there, that's because you spend so much time making the notes look nice that you didn't have enough time doing things like practicing more questions, memorizing the content using things like flashcards, active recall. Those are the things that actually will help you get better grades. So the next time you're making notes, remember that it's just a tool. Try to spend as little time as you can making them. As long as it's neat, it doesn't need to be fancy. Another tip is drawing bio diagrams. Some of them can be very complicated, like the heart diagram. And if it's too complicated, you don't have to draw it. You can just print it out and then paste it into your notes. Yes, it's allowed. It may not look the nicest or the most fancy, but it gets the job done and saves you so much time. Here's a hack to write less when you're making notes. Use short forms and arrows. Example, for the word with, you can make it a W with a line on top of the W. For without, you can use W/O, and that makes it a lot shorter. And I love to use arrows not just in making notes, but every time I write things, even when I teach. So an arrow can stand for leads to or results in. It's super useful in bio because we have a lot of explanations where one thing leads to another. So here's an example. You eat carbohydrates, arrow, digested, arrow, glucose is absorbed into your bloodstream. Arrow, blood glucose exceeds the norm. Arrow, cells in islets of Langerhans in the pancreas. Arrow, secretes more insulin. So that way I save so many words and I still completely understand the meaning of it. Here's a pro tip for making notes that only the top students use. They leave blank spaces in their notes. And it's not just for the sake of adding more content if you forgot, but it's also for writing crucial lessons you learned after doing practice questions. So in the recent exam where I made notes for the content, then I went to do practice questions for it and I made a lot of mistakes. So I took those lessons which I learned, I would come back to that specific sub-concept in my notes and add a star and whatever that lesson is to myself. So sometimes it's a misconception that I had, or sometimes it's, hey, in this specific type of questions, do this, right? Or like, this is how to solve. So that is the kind of things I will write in that blank space. Let's use a bio example. Let's say you got tricked by a question that arteries always carry oxygenated blood. But it's not true because pulmonary artery is deoxygenated. So you go to your notes, right, in the blank space, and you write star, arteries not always oxygenated. Instead, arteries carry blood away from heart because that one is always true. So this way you are improving your notes, which is like an instruction manual, and it's teaching yourself. It's almost like you're writing to yourself and all these explanations and tips. Specifically, it's to help you understand it, plus help you perform better in the exam. That's how you should be making your notes. So that's it for this video. The reason why I make these videos is because there's so many students struggling with bio and I don't want you to be one of them. In case you're not subscribed yet, subscribe to our channel. And it's completely free. Plus, I assure you there'll be a lot more good stuff coming your way.